Josh Barnes is going to kick it off for us. Tell us about what happened today, Josh.
Yeah, the wheels are turning, but they're turning very slowly. We've got the one deal today. Jack Graham has signed with West Coast as a free agent. That's a 4-year deal. Richmond gets pick number 42 as compensation for that, Dicko. Jay, that's another pick into Richmond. We've been iffy about the free agency compensation. What do you reckon about this?
I'm not outraged by it. It's been a huge discussion. A lot of people getting their jocks in a twist about, the secret herbs and spices. And I reckon over the journey, it's been a little bit rubbery. But 42 for Jack Graham, I think that's fine. He's a good average midfielder. He's a hard nut, Joey, an unrestricted midfielder. I think it's an unrestricted free agent. So, and I think he's got a 4-year deal at West Coast. So that's about right. We can't be too upset about that.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people today comparing Harry Perriman to Jack Graham. It's got nothing to do with the quality of player. It's got to do with the length of their contracts and what they've been offered. Look, I'm okay with the free agency system. I know you've got a different view, but I think what's happened this year is it's been slightly skewed because of the TPP increase. That these contract offers are much bigger than they have been in the past, and that's why we've seen a few clubs get this band one compensation.
Well, this free agency compensation, Joey, so would you change anything in terms of the way it sits right now?
Well, I think we all agree there's always ways you can do things better. I'm not exactly sure what the answers are. I mean, you're one that's not as in agreement with so much of these selections.
Yeah, well, I think we can look at that like a broken clock, really. It's right twice a day. That's maybe 1 out of 4, I reckon. I don't think any of us agree with Josh Battle at number 8, but that is right. It's the length of the contract, and they are often based on past deals as well. So we're comparing almost apples and oranges with the new CBA. The money for Josh Battle is nowhere near what it would have been in 2015, for example, but that's a free agency life.
I think the politics can sometimes come into play. I don't think anyone was really surprised to see St Kilda get pick 8 for Josh Battle, given the situation they're in. So the politics, for mine, are still a close watch.
What about Barnesy coming in with some nuggets early? The clock, I love it. You're on fire early. Jay, let's talk about Tom Barrass, because it's a big move to the Hawks.
Yeah, so Jack Graham, a deal done now to West Coast. Really, the Eagles set their sights on Tom Barrass, the gun defender to Hawthorn in that deal, and also getting Liam Baker from Richmond. So Tom Barrass feels like it's a really key domino, but Hawthorn getting him, West Coast want more than one first-round pick. So pick 14, that'll be the key part, the centrepiece of that deal, but there has to be something else to it from West Coast perspective. So I think you'll see that they'll try and centre in on that future second-round pick. So as it Hawthorn would have to give up pick 14 and a future second for Tom Barrass, one of the best key defenders in the competition. I know he turns 29 today, so happy birthday to Tom Barrass. But I feel like these two clubs have got to find a bit of middle ground. No, he's not worth 2 first-round draft picks. It's 1 first and maybe something in between. Would you agree?
Yeah, it does feel about right. I think he's probably better than pick 14, particularly when we get to Liam Baker in a moment, who's looking at something similar going towards Richmond. He's a better prospect, key defender. They're hard to find, still contracted for a number of years. So I do think Hawthorn probably have to stump up a bit more than just the 14, which I think they probably know as well, don't they, that they need to do that to get him over the line.
Not insignificant for their premiership hopes, Hawthorn, when you think about it. Getting Tom Barrass, one of the best, plus Josh Battle, that really does reinforce their back line. And then do they send Sicily forward, James Sicily forward?
Yeah, well, I think Sicily goes forward because I think their back line's fully stocked now, and he'd be wasted if he didn't go forward because you've seen what he can impact he's had this year. Let's talk about the head of footy now. West Coast have signed John Worsfold.
This news just dropped, so we know with Andrew McQualter, the new coach of the West Coast Eagles, they probably need an experienced figure there as their head of football, someone with a steady hand, and we know John Worsfold, premiership player, premiership coach, absolute legend of the West Coast Eagles Football Club. He's going to be there to support Andrew McQualter, and given his incredible experience over the journey, Joey, feels like a good addition.
It feels like a great addition for Andrew McQualter. He needs some support. John Worsfold understands the Western Australian media, so they can help Minnie navigate his way through that. Got the experience, and I really like it.
Let's stick with West Coast, Jay. Liam Baker.
Yeah, you think so? Once the Tommy Barrass domino falls, and there'll be some key progress on this over the next couple of days, you think that unlocks the Liam Baker deal. So West Coast will have pick 14. That'll go to Richmond for the hard nut midfielder in Liam Baker. I just wonder, is that about right, Joey? Should it be a straight swap? We don't often see straight swaps for Liam Baker. So versatile, so consistent. Do you think that'll be the entirety of that deal?
That'll be the centrepiece, won't it? And then we've seen generally clubs will swap some later picks, whether that's second, third, fourth round picks, so that everyone feels like they've come out on top. But it's probably maybe slightly overs. I mean, you look at some other players and what they're worth. He is a good player. He's out of contract, so Richmond don't have as much leverage as maybe they usually would. But, he is a heart and soul type player and one that has got a winning culture, which is what I like about his addition to the West Coast Eagles.
Yeah, I think the value of Liam Baker is significantly less than Tom Barrass filling that fullback role. We just spoke about pick 14 and a second for Tom Barrass. I think pick 14, you've got to throw something back the other way to make that work.
It's a good discussion because Damien Hardwick did say when he was coaching Richmond, you could build a team around him. Like, he loved him. He was almost the favourite son there. So.
And was touted as a future captain of the Richmond Football Club at one stage. The thing is, he loves West Coast Eagles. He was a big West Coast Eagles Nuffy fan. Did he go to the 2018 Grand Final wearing Ben Cousins' jumper or something like that? So clearly a big fan of the Eagles.
Cannot believe the interview is quite at this trade period.
This is why the trades all get done on the last day, because they all sit around and just say, we haven't spoken to anyone yet.
Dave Missenden, we heard him say he finds out what's happening in the newspaper. He says he's been reading the Herald Sun. I read what's in the press and I'll go from there.
He's really watching tonight, doesn't he?
We would be, I'm sure.
Yeah, cheerio there, Dave. Let's talk about the McRae deal. Like, where are we at? We just spoke about briefly their midfield. So, do we think that deal will get done?
I think ideally the Saints would want to give a very late pick for the Saints. Really, for McRae, he's an experienced player. Probably doesn't have the leg speed. I think because they've lost Brad Crouch and Seb Ross, St Kilda need him as depth more than anything else. But they're not going to give a prime pick for Jack McRae. Whereas the Bulldogs, because he's got 3 years left on his contract and played, 19 games this year, they're clearly a part in this negotiation, Joe.
And I think the contract's something like $800,000 for the next couple of years. So if St Kilda are going to take that on, they wouldn't be expecting to give much of a pick. And I think it's more they're expecting the Western Bulldogs to be happy to let him go for what they're trying to do with the balance of their side. Get Sanders into the team and these sorts of guys. So I think it'll get done.
Barnesy, what about Soldo? He wants to get there as the number one ruck. Rowan Marshall. Not sure he's going to get the number one ruck unless he goes to the VFL, but don't see where he fits and why he's actually considering St Kilda.
No, I think he's leaving because he didn't end up being the number one ruck at Port Adelaide. He may have said to them, I believe I will be, and they didn't commit to that in an exit meeting. Jordan Sweet went past him later in the year. Ivan Soldo missed through some injury late in the season, but I don't see how he fits with Rowan Marshall. You're going to have to send Rowan Marshall to play at full forward, probably next to Max King. Max King, you're probably too heavy to do that and too tall. And Rowan Marshall polled 18 Brownlow votes this year. He's their best midfielder, probably their best player at St Kilda. They're going to be taking him out of there. I just don't see how that works, Joey.
Yeah, while I'm not convinced on McRae, I like this one. I do think it's an opportunity for St Kilda to get better. I think you're underestimating Rowan Marshall as a forward. He came to the club as a guy that could play centre-half back, centre-half forward. He's more athletic. And I think that it just allows Max King to have a mate. He needs someone next to him that can do some heavy lifting. And I think if it's a King, Rowan Marshall, Sharman as the three talls, I like the mix. Soldo can do the rucking. Marshall can play second ruck. I think it can help the team.
Marshall can be a bit of a floater, almost like Tommy De Koning at Carlton to some degree.
And Jackson,
and his body has taken a punishing. He's been so durable. I think Soldo can really help out and sort of share that physical load.
And they want St Kilda need a ruckman that can win hit out. So as much as Marshall gets a lot of possession, great. I think they want first possession to allow their midfield to be a bit more proactive than they have been in the past.
So you think it'll be a successful one based on the Grundy and Gawn experiment?
No, I think Rowan Marshall can play as a forward. And what it means, I think Caminiti can then go and play and they can train him up to be a key defender because they need to find a young key defender, and I think it works well.